Paranormal Road has been brought to you by EVP Mediums. Visit us at evpmediums.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Exploring unknown regions of our reality.
And she looks out and sees these lights in the sky and these different patterns drifting like they're going to land.
Examining the depths of human perception.
I remember when I was awake and I realized I was awake, I started to sort of scan the room and I realized that something was wrong.
Pursuing the elusive and unseen.
Electronics started acting up, ceased to work, overheated.
You have just entered a road of wondrous mystery.
And so when we get around this bend in the road and this group of trees, we look up in the sky and there's this craft, and it is huge.
A place where sometimes our darkest terrors dwell.
I've never seen anything like this, and instantly I could feel the fear.
You've just turned on to the Paranormal Road. Paranormal Road.
And welcome. You've just turned on the Paranormal Road. I'm Dave Hensley, your host.
And I'm Randy Kessler, your co-host.
For our listeners who listened to episode 39, Ohio Loop Galoo, you may recall the judge's story as he talks about his encounters with, in his words, what looked like the Egyptian god Anubis. A dogman, werewolf, what it was, who knows? But as you recall from that episode, the judge is actually involved in another podcast, or a podcast that him and a few others operate, called From the Shadows. And I'll tell you, folks, it's a really good podcast. So if you get a chance, check out From the Shadows. And actually, we will be having a guest on in a few weeks, one of the co-hosts, Shane Grove, to talk about his books, aptly named, in accordance with the podcast, From the Shadows. And he also has some paranormal experiences, all around great guy, so we're excited to have him on in a future episode, so stay tuned for that.
Also, listeners, we want to remind everybody that we want to hear your paranormal experiences. If you have a paranormal experience of any type that you'd like to share with us and also share with our listeners, you can email us on paranormalroadpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear and share your experiences with all of our listeners. Please be as detailed as possible because we want everybody to get every piece of your story and hear it just the way you lived it. Again, that's paranormalroadpodcast@gmail.com.
Remember, if you like this show that you're going to hear tonight and you like the Paranormal Road podcast, you can really help us out by rating us. Give us a rating. 5-star rating would be awesome on Apple Podcast or Podbean or wherever you get your podcast from. What also really helps is writing a review. A rating and review really pushes us up in the search algorithm so more people can discover the Paranormal Road. One of the best ways you can help us out is by sharing an episode on your social media on Facebook. Tell your friends all about the Paranormal Road.
And as always, we like to mention our favorite and our biggest sponsor, It's Your Journey. It's Your Journey is located in Huron, Ohio, and it's an incredible shop. We just wanted everybody to take a minute and check them out on It's Your Journey.
If you're into the metaphysics, it's an incredible place. They have everything from essential oils to smudge sticks for healing, protection stones, you name it, they got it.
They have Reiki, you can get readings, they have drum classes. They just have everything. And just walking in the door, you can feel the warmth and love that these ladies have put into this shop. You really need to check them out. And if you're from out of state, it doesn't matter where you're at. Check them out on their website.
Australia or England, yeah. Their website, they ship worldwide.
And they sell a lot of items on Amazon also. So really, give them a look-see and see if there's anything that they have that you might want to try out, or give them a call and ask them for suggestions. They're very knowledgeable.
Check out their website, itsyourjourney.com. All right, it's been a while since we've shared any of our feedback, and we had a listener write in. Hey guys, just wanted to say I love your show. You have a great guest, and I really love your show topics. You're awesome. I just discovered you and started binge listening. I noticed when you first started your show, you talked about monthly case file focus of your paranormal investigations. Did I miss something? Are there shows that are posted somewhere other than Podbean? I only heard 2 of these shows. I thought they were going to be monthly. Anyway, just wanted to say, keep up the great work. Jackie from Dallas, Texas. No, Jackie, you didn't miss anything.
Sorry, Jackie.
Yeah, we kind of got distracted along the way. Last
Dave
season,
tends to get excited about certain shows, and it's like, oh, we're going to have this one next. And then, there goes that case file.
Especially when it was the cryptids and some of the UFO Haddox reports. Yeah. So we did kind of get distracted on that. I know originally we talked about having them monthly, but it's interesting that you sent this to us, because actually within a few weeks we're going to be having a case file focus. So stay tuned for that and keep up. If you're not following us on Paranormal Road Facebook, Jackie, please like and subscribe and follow us on Facebook, because we will post when that show airs. But we will be focusing on a case we did in Berlin Heights, Ohio, called The Deacon. So check it out on YouTube. And we will then have Travis and Hillary, the homeowners who experienced some extreme paranormal activity and called us in, and we got some incredible results. But we're going to try to find out what's been going on, because that's been some time since we've had that investigation.
It's always good. We're lucky in the fact that most of our cases have turned into very good friendships.
Yep.
And we love it when our clients call and update us on how things are going, or when they show up at our lectures and different functions that we have. So we really like to get the chance to talk to them. So thanks, Jackie, for bringing that to our attention. We're going to start trying to schedule some of our past clients.
Yep, we will have them on the show soon.
Our featured show tonight is going to be with an incredible woman. She has just the most touching YouTube presentation, and her name is Ingrid Honkala. She experienced a near death back when she was 2 to 3 years old.
Yeah, in Colombia.
And remembers it to this day like it just happened. She's going to share with us the entire story and tell us exactly how that changed her entire life.
She's just an amazing person. She just love, and the light just pours out of her, and I think you're gonna feel that tonight as we talk with her. She's just again, we can't say enough wonderful things about her. She's incredible. She's now living in the States and Mississippi, and she's a doctor and
she's originally from Bogota, Colombia.
Yes. So wonderful guest in Near Death Experience tonight. We cannot wait for you to hear that interview with her. But before we hear from Ingrid, we have a brief Haddox report.
And now, professional UFO investigator on special assignment with Paranormal Road, it's William Haddox with the Haddox Report.
This is William Haddox with the Haddox Report, and I have 2 very interesting cases to bring to you this week. The first one is out of northern Ohio, just outside of Youngstown. The individual had messaged me back on March the 5th. Adrenaline pumping like crazy, because of what he had just witnessed. And they were faint white lights. He also included a cell phone video. To me, initially, they appeared almost star-like, how stars will appear. It was kind of that effect. But they were all in a line. And it was very, interesting. In the bottom left corner, there was a bright star, Venus. So actually a planet. But people get it confused quite often. But these were all in a straight line, flying from southwest to northeast, and then disappeared right in front of them. So he was pretty taken back by what he had seen, and I had a rough idea of what the objects might have been, but at that point in time, I had not had a chance to research it. I hadn't had the report probably 20 minutes or so at this point. So I had an idea, like I said, but no evidence or anything to back it up, just a speculation. And not long after, maybe an hour or so went by, I get another message from the individual. He solved his own case. It ended up being from SpaceX. It was Starlink, where they had sent up approximately 40 satellites, and that's about how many he thought he saw. And they travel in a straight line together. They almost look like they're hooked on a tandem. I'm not sure, probably just the orbit that they're in, but very interesting that he was able to figure out what he had saw and showed me a screenshot where they were over his area at the same time and everything matched up, and that pretty much put that case to rest. Now, the reason I bring that up is I think people are apprehensive when they fill out a report, and of course I do the best I can to give them an answer, but not being from the area, then I can sometimes have difficulty in knowing what all local news stations are around, or other witnesses in the area. It can be tough for me to reach out at times. I have a pretty good track record, I will admit, but nevertheless, not being from the area makes it a little more challenging. So when you send in a report, do not ever think that that's the end of it. If you have more information later, maybe you read something online or talked to somebody that saw it, or maybe it was in your local newspaper, or the evening news might have had a little clip about it. You can always follow up. There is never anything to stop you from going back to the website or messaging me through Facebook or however you choose to say, hey, I've got some more information. I don't care how out there it may be, or maybe you've got a friend or something or family member that has a crazy idea of what it could have been. Send it along. And if you've got anything from a news station or an article, send some screenshots or links, whatever info you have, and that will, if nothing else, point me in a direction. Now, I do not take their word, as the gospel, so to speak. The news is wrong quite often. But if they've got something like the example here with Starlink that's showing the exact flight path, the trajectory and everything, then that's as concrete of evidence as you'll ever get. Now, I've got another case out of London, Ohio. And the witness wants to remain anonymous. He doesn't want to give any more information than this, which is unfortunate, but I completely respect his wishes and I understand. So this report was sent to me on March the 6th, and this is from the witness's initial testimony. I'm going to paraphrase. But he woke up that Thursday morning around 5 a.m. and looked out his window, and he saw an object with a front flashing light and a solid rear light. He thinks there was more than one object. No middle lights, no wings. The object was pitch black and cigar-shaped. He estimates 40 to 100 foot in length, 5 to 10 foot tall, and about 5 miles an hour with no noise. Like I said, no wings or anything. And I've heard of similar things in the past. Cigar-shaped is kind of a classic UFO shape. It's been reported for years, decades. Now, what made this one extremely unusual, and I will say that London is a fairly rural area, a lot of farmlands and things. I'm not sure about the exact location, but that's kind of the layout of the area. But what made this one extremely interesting was this large object. Now remember, 40 to 100 foot in length is only 30 to 40 foot off the ground. He doesn't even remember if he opened the door just looking out the window, never went outside, and after it got toward the tree line, he lost it. So it got past the trees, and that was the end of it. Pretty shaken up by the experience. Of course, he went back to sleep and had very little sleep after that, which, if I saw something like that, I'd probably react in a similar fashion. So that was a very interesting case, to say the least. At first I thought, cigar-shaped, yes, they're very interesting, but they're I don't want to say common, but they're one of the more frequently seen shapes of objects over the years. But when it was only 30 to 40 foot off the ground, that really caught my attention. I checked best I could of flight radars and things, and nothing was in the area that I could find. So, unless another witness or something happens to come forward, there's not a whole lot that I can investigate with this one, but I will put it on the website, and as well as the previous case with Starlink, I want to put that one on there as well. Just so people can get an idea that, like I say, regardless of what you saw, when it's something in the sky that you can't identify, then feel free to report it. Doesn't matter where you're located or anything. I will do my best to get you an answer. And I will guarantee that if you either email or through the Facebook page, I will respond within 24 hours. I would prefer if you've done it through the website, which is Central Ohio UFO Reporting Center.us, since that goes straight to my personal email and I can get the response a lot faster and don't have to run into the issues that Facebook has at times. But that's what I've got for this week, guys. So hope everybody is able to have a good rest of your week. Stay safe, and as always, keep looking up.
And thanks again, William, for that interesting Haddox report. And now let's have our guest speaker for the evening, Ingrid Hankala, telling us about her amazing near-death experience.
And welcome, Ingrid, to the Paranormal Road. I'm Dave.
And I'm Randy.
Hi, guys. It's such a blessing to be here today. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, trust me when I say that the blessing is all ours. We're so grateful to have you on the show.
It is such an honor to have you on our show.
Thank you very much. I'm just right open with my open heart to share whatever you guys want to share this evening.
Well, I think the most, I know what you're going to share with our audience is you just exude love. It's just your soul, you're just an amazing spiritual person. And to have an NDE, which so many of us cannot wrap our heads around, it's so hard because everybody, as you know, we get caught up in keeping up with the Joneses, we get caught up in our job and our physical things. So it's hard for us to stretch our imagination outside and even, we ask ourselves, why are we here? But right when we're ready to calm that, why are we here? The phone rings, or the doorbell rings, or the kids are screaming. And with our hectic lives, we're so honored to have you on our show that you can share with our listening audience that there is more. We are from something that is so incredible. Whatever you want to label it or call it, you've seen it firsthand. So what we'd like to do tonight is have you just start out and tell us about that experience.
And for those of you that don't know, Ingrid has actually told her story on YouTube, and we had the honor of watching it, and it was amazing. And
Randy was in tears
more
than once.
And it takes a lot for me.
No, it doesn't.
No, not really. But what happened was that caught me immediately and kept me on the entire story was that this happened to you so young, but yet it was so clear to you and how it went through the stages of your life. So that's what we want the audience to capture from this.
And I can see the audience is now saying, okay, guys, shut up and let
I know,
tell
they
the story.
they want to hear you, and here I am rambling. So we want you to tell the story. It's amazing, and you tell it so wonderful that I'm going to shut up now and let you tell it.
Oh, this is beautiful. And yeah, this, just like you say, this experience when I was so young opened the path of awakening, what we call awakening, the path of spirituality for me. And this just led to that path for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. So what happened is I was just 2 years old, close to 3 years old, when I drowned. And the reason this accident happened was because at the time, both my parents worked and they would leave us at the care of a maid. And she was a very young lady that when my parents were not around, she didn't really pay attention to us. So early one morning, they left for work. And once they left, she just went to her room to listen to the radio and left us unattended. And my sister was close to 4 years old, my oldest sister. I was, like I just said, close to 3, and the youngest was just 1 year old. And of course, seeing that we were not being watched, like, oh, let's go play. And we just went to the house. This was a big house, and there was a patio in the house. And in this patio, there was a tank. That the purpose of this tank was to collect water for hand washing clothes. And the thing is that in Colombia at the time we didn't have a washing machine. So next to this tank there was a flat surface for scrubbing, and that's how laundry was done. And my sister and I found a ball in the patio and looked at the tank and decided, oh, let's play catch across the tank. Being little, you're not going to think that there's any danger on doing that. And the tank was pretty big. It held about 900 gallons of water. So we decided to grab a stool and climb on the tank.
And there's our cue for break. Stay with us, folks. When we return, we will hear more of Ingrid's amazing story and her incredible journey into the light.
Don't let the negativity of today's world get you sidetracked from your life's journey. Visit It's Your Journey Metaphysical Store at 4750 Cleveland Road East in Huron, Ohio. It's Your Journey is more than a store. It's a place of healing and knowledge. It's Your Journey carries a wide variety of healing crystals and protection stones, salt lamps, books, incense, candles, essential oils, and more. It's Your Journey also offers Reiki, energy healing, personal readings, spirit releasement, and soul retrieval. Live out of the area? No problem. Visit It's Your Journey's website at itsyourjourney.com and shop online. Shipping available worldwide. Or call 419-433-0888. Don't let negative energy stop you. Take charge. It's your journey.
You're not going to think that there's any danger on doing that. And the tank was pretty big. It held about 900 gallons of water. So we decided to grab the stool and climb on the tank. And my sister, she sat on the flat surface for scrubbing, which was a little safer because it was a good space, good size. But me, I had to be in the opposite side so we could play. And this was a thin edge. And I bended my legs and I was leaning very precariously in this tank. And again, at that age, what is the problem about that? Then my sister threw the ball and she didn't apply enough force. And what happened was that the ball fell on the water and I leaned forward thinking that I could grab it. Of course, being so little, I didn't know any physics. So when I tried to grab the ball, it rolled on the surface of the water and I just lost my balance and fell in the water. And this is when I said that I always mention that people have the misconception that because I was born in Colombia, I come from a hot weather country. Mm-hmm. But that was not the case of this place because I was born in Bogota, which is high up in the Andes. And the temperature out there, like around 6 in the morning, very early in the morning, you could find temperatures that are between 30 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
So the temperature in this water was pretty cold. So, of course, the first thing when I fell in the water was this sense of like, wow, the water was frigid cold. And it just felt it in my entire being. And it was the sense that my whole chest had imploded and I could not breathe. And at that age, I have never been in a pool and we didn't have a bathtub. So I have never been like that with my head underwater. And I didn't know that if you fall into water, you drown. So imagine that sense of horror. What is going on? Why I cannot breathe? And then when I'm experiencing this state of absolute terror, I went from that in just a flash to a state of absolute peace. It's like, there was no need to breathe. There was not fear. There was not need to try to do anything. It was just the sense of complete joy, peace, calmness.
Now, Ingrid, at this point, this was just a feeling or a state. You weren't seeing anything at this point, or the feeling came first?
Yes, it was just this absolute relief. Mm-hmm. It was just this feeling of like, that you're in just a state of terror, horror, distress, and now it's all gone. Mm-hmm. And I put like few points of contrast here that are very interesting because I like you mentioned that because there's few things that happen simultaneously. Then one was that this space was very dark. Mm-hmm. because it was a cement tank and it had a roof on top. So it was very early in the morning. So it was a very dark space. So the last thing I saw with my eyes open was the darkness of the space. So almost simultaneously with that sense of absolute peace came a light that happened it was coming from the bottom, and it was like the light of a candle had been lit, and it was enough light to illuminate the whole watery surrounding. So it's like, wow. So now there was light. And besides that, now you mentioned it. So there's the sense of feeling now, seeing this light. And the other thing that was incredibly beautiful was that I lived in a house that was very noisy because I had 2 more sisters. We were all little. We had dogs. My mom liked birds. So we had birds, and we had some cousins that lived just next door. It was a lot of noise. It was a very noisy house. And right before this calmness and this peace came, the last thing I heard was my heart. And it was pounding in my head like a drum, like boom, boom, boom. And with this peace came the silence. And I have never, like I said, I live in a house that was noisy, and it was always all this noise. It was the first time I experienced that sense of absolute silence.
Now, Ingrid, do you think that was the moment of death? Is like you were hearing your heart banging in your ear for fear, and then your heart stopped beating, and then you had the experience, or is it just the experience overwhelmed the terror, if that makes sense?
Yeah, maybe at that moment, because probably that was just the very early stage of just
death.
falling in the water. Maybe at that moment, I don't think I was experiencing that yet, but yeah, it was exactly like all these feelings of calmness and grayness, just the rest was put aside.
Gotcha.
With this silence, I experienced what I call the silence behind the silence. Imagine this absolute state of peace, to the point, guys, that later in my life, I craved that silence. I wanted it back because it's something that, wow, is so profound. And then the other contrast was that, I will go to that in a minute, but I was in just this state of absolute peace when I saw bubbles suspended in the water. And the bubbles were surrounded by light. Like I said, this light was on, and I'm like, wow, then now there's bubbles, and I am just in the state of wonder too, like in the state of awe, and I just see these bubbles, and I decided to chase the bubbles. And when I chased the bubbles, I turned around, and it's when I saw a body suspended in the water. And that was amazing, because at that point, I looked at the body and I knew that was my body. I had that awareness, and I did not feel any fear. And actually, I even had the feeling of like, oh, okay, this is normal. This already happened before. And then it came the other important point of contrast, and it was that I was born as a very sick child, and I spent the almost first 3 years of my life unwell. I had respiratory problems. I always wasn't well. Then imagine this, being in that state of absolute well-being. When I saw the body, I'm like, I'm not going back there. So this is the other amazing thing. I had the clarity that I could choose not to go back to the body. So at that moment, I just looked at that body and I said, no, I'm not going back. And I turned around and I left. And then the moment I left, I started to see flowers that were blooming from nowhere. And this was majestic. So now imagine it's like, you think about it, and it's like there was no concept of even size or dimension, because now these flowers picked me up. And I was being carried by the flowers. And I put the analogy that is like going back to the womb, where you don't have to do absolutely anything. You're being done. That sense of, there's nothing to strive for. There's nothing to desire. There's nothing. You just,
And the decision at that age, being that young and having the terror and then see that, it would be a decision that was so easy to make that, no, I don't want to go back there because you're young. You don't have a lot of experience ahead of you. So it was an easy decision to say, I want to go where it's beautiful. I want to go where it might be fun. I want to get away from my problems of breathing. And so to me, it's amazing that you had such clarity and so much thought at that age, and it was unaware to you in life form.
Yes, and that I love what you're saying, because also it shows that when there's not that sense of attachment, you just can turn around and you leave and you're free. Then once we attach to so many things, then of course the decisions become more difficult. But I was so young, and I didn't have that sense of attachment yet. And I think also what happened a little bit with my family and my parents, there was a lot of suffering involved. My parents were forced to marry. There was a lot of suffering coming from them. So there was many things that also made me feel this maid that took care of us also was a very abusive person. So for me, leaving was pretty easy decision. Was like, why I want to stay here? It's a world that has not been benign. So bye. I was in the complete immerse in love, in peace, in joy, in silence. Why do I want the noise of life? Why do I want that? So at that moment was a very easy decision to make. Yes.
And innocence.
Yes. So when I'm being carried by these flowers, guys, I'm just in this state of absolute joy. Like you're just in the hands, I call it in the hands of the divine, and you don't have to do anything. So I'm resting there when in just a flash, in just a second, I appear in the maid's room. And I was looking at her from above. And she's lying on her bed completely unaware of what is happening to me. And then I look at her and I said, oh, that's Maria. And this is so clear in my mind, this whole thing, that I can even remember that she was listening to soap operas in the radio. And I just look at her, and because she was completely unaware of anything, in just a flash, again, I appear in my mom's path. At the time, my mom didn't have a car, and she had to walk. And it was kind of like, it was about 10 minutes walk from our house to the bus stop. She had to cross the whole neighborhood. And she was close to her bus stop. And again, from above, I'm looking at her from above, and I appear on her path. And then I said, oh, that's Mom. And guys, at the very moment I said this, my mom is stopped. And she's like, something is happening at home.
Wow.
Something is happening with one of my babies. I have to go back.
Wow. That's
she
amazing.
Did not, and other step forward, nothing. She just turned around and started to run back home.
Incredible.
This is amazing. And this is what I call, this is amazing connection between parents and children. This incredible
that internal bond.
Yeah. So my mom started to run back home. But at that moment, I looked at her and I'm like, oh, but I just got distracted because I realized that wherever I put my mind, I could go. So it was time and space had vanished for me. And I could be anywhere at any time. So if I would just look at, I remember I was like a dog at the end of the street. I love animals. So I would be right there. If I would see a tree, I would be right there, whatever. So I started to play this game of just going places. And I just having fun when, again, in just a flash, everything in this experience was like that. In just a flash, I appeared in a realm that was made of pure, bright, intense, shiny light. And, that was even the, the sense I had before of being at peace was duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt, I am home. It was the sense that in these 3 years, I finally was back home. But I said it is the sense like if you, just to give the analogy, like you leave to go to work and you come back in the evening. Mm-hmm. So it's like the sense that not even 3 years had passed.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, like it was such a long day out of home and I'm back. And although I didn't see anybody at the moment or hear anything, it was the sense of being welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the sense that this was like, again, like this was happening again. I was just coming back. So at that moment, although I saw my body suspended in the water, I did not have the realization until then that I was not Ingrid. So see, I like the question you made at the beginning of like, if that was the moment on my day or not. I mean, it's hard to tell, but it's like I was still having the influence of the mind when I made that decision. I'm not going back into this body.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I entered this realm of the light is when I started to really completely detach from the idea of Ingrid.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's when at that moment I had the realization I'm not Ingrid. I'm not that persona. I'm not that. And it's when it's like when I realized myself as a being of light. That was, but even up to that point, I was still having that sense of self, but I had this sense of now pretty much dissolving or getting in just oneness with the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it went even farther, and it's when I experienced what I just described, or I can refer as the sense of non-self. Or what I just call it nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because people ask me, but what nothing means? I said, the moment I tell you something, it becomes something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something, the moment you try to describe it, and now you're giving a description, it becomes something. So it's a state that cannot be described, only can be experienced.
And it's kind of like we don't have to be something. It's like...
Exactly. So I just say people is that space of no description, no meaning, no condition, no color, not movement, no sound. And the only thing I could say if I would just to say something is the space of absolute presence and pure, I would just say pure consciousness.
Mm-hmm. It's like having something that's spiritual wrap around you, like a spiritual blanket or something where you just feel that comfort,
connection,
and it doesn't have to be something. You're just surrounded by the warmth of the spiritualness. I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand it completely.
It's just pure presence. That's all.
Let me ask you something. I've read for years, and it goes back to the loss of my dad when I was very young and my grandparents, but for no kidding, for at least 25, 30 years, I would read everything I could on NDE experiencers, Near Death Expierances, going, with Dr. Raymond Moody. And there have been a lot of people that had these experiences that, like you are talking about, but they describe it at some point where they didn't feel they were male or female. They didn't feel they were black or white. They just were. Is that what kind of you were feeling?
Yes, exactly. The rest is conditioning. The rest is description. The rest is names. The rest is experience. this is a stage of non-experience, non-self, non-identification. It's just pure being.
And all of the other, where we become physical and have names, is a completely different realm than where you were.
Yes, exactly. We are actually multidimensional beings. So when at the same time that we can be here experiencing ourselves in this physical form, if we learn the ways to experience our inner self, we can touch those realms. And it's like nowadays what is called practices of mindfulness, presence, is meditation, is that attempt to go back to that space, to go when they is mentioned in the Bible and when they talk about the kingdom of heaven is the dimension of a space, is that place of being.
Right. I've often believed, and I say this all the time, especially to my children who are grieving the loss of, their grandparents recently, is that I firmly believe, and again, this is why I'm so drawn to your story, is that we are actually spiritual beings having a physical experience. That this is not our true form. This is a temporary form. And your grandparents simply went home before you or before me. And, I really firmly believe in comfort to people who are grieving and losing someone, because this is, just again from my studies and realizing that this is all momentary. They've finished their work or their lesson or whatever you want to call it here, but they've returned home. So while I grieve for my grandparents, miss them, I no longer mourn for them.
That's beautiful.
If that makes sense. Because I know I'm going to see them again.
Yes, and I love you teaching that to your children, because that's what I teach to my son too. He has this clarity, the knowing that this is just a dress, but we never lose who we are in this multi-dimension in who we are. It's just we forgot, seemingly forgot, and we are in this place where we are remembering consciously who we are. We are remembering that we are that awareness, that we are consciousness. So this is an amazing place to experience contrast,
right,
and go back with clarity to discover who we truly are, to rediscover, because we always have been. We just forgot, seemingly forgot.
and I love the way you put that too, because it for us sometimes it's hard to explain to people, but the way you put it is very understandable, and it sort of ties into what we do or how we got started in all this with our EVP mediums, where we do paranormal investigating, I guess you'd call it, although we don't really just investigate. We
help spirits go home.
We help spirits. And a big part of what we do when we go to a client's home is we won't go unless they give us permission to try to convince lost wandering spirits to go home. And that's to go into the light. And when we're there, we try to do that by doing a crossover, and we try to convince the client that it's best for that spirit to go into the light, because at that point, they're no longer judged. They're in a realm of unconditional love.
They're home.
Yeah, and they know that if you need them, or if you mourn them to the point that you need something or a sign from them, that because they have the awareness that they are going to be where you are in the split second, just like you said you could go to where your mother was or go to where your maid was. That made complete sense to me when we talk to our clients about when your spirits of loved ones cross over, they can go and be anywhere at any time.
They're never going to miss your wedding.
Yeah.
No.
They're not going to miss the bar mitzvah or whatever it may be.
Nothing.
They're always going to be with you.
Here. Yeah, everything is here and now.
And
we don't go anywhere. There's nowhere. There's everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah. And I love your story because it's so validating, so much of what we've learned in our investigations.
And again, because we believe that people's paths cross for a reason, that is the connection that we had with really wanting to talk with you, because the way you come across and telling your story is exactly the way we feel when we talk to clients about spirit activity in their homes or the loss of their loved ones and trying to bring them closure. All of this falls into play with what you're explaining as in your experience.
Right. Your gift, and I'm sure at times throughout your life, and we're going to shut up because we want you to get back to your story, but I'm sure in times of your life you probably wondered, why is this happening to me, or why did this happen to me? And I think, you just being on the show is why, because I think you're touching so many people with your story. And we're going to bow out and let you, pick up from where we interrupted you and let you tell as far as what else you were seeing in that realm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But yeah, the question of why me, oh Lord, that just came so many times. And that's what also shaped and reshaped my past, that very question. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, like going back to the point of the story, then yeah, while I was experiencing the state of being that we're just talking right now, this is all about that. I was in the state of pure being. My mom finally arrived home. And again, like all these so amazing, so beautiful, she knew exactly where to go. And this, like I mentioned, this was a big house, but she directed herself. If she would have wasted time looking in other places or trying to think what she's here, I would have definitely drowned. But this just meant to be the way it is. So she went to the back of the house, and my sister, she was leaning in the tank, still trying to help me. And incredibly later on in my life, a lot of the symbols and everything that happened was revealed to me, because it's incredible, guys, but absolutely everything has a purpose. And the purpose for my sister to be there was to show to my mom that I was definitely in that tank. Mm-hmm. So when she looked at my mom, she's like, Mom, Ingrid is there and I cannot get her. And this is another thing. Look at how everything just plays so amazingly. People ask me, like, why she didn't go to the maid? And I said, yeah, because this is meant to be this way. The maid was very mean to us. So she meant to be mean because we feared the reprisal. So she would have never gone to the maid because we were doing something we did not supposed to do. We had gone to the patio and played in the tank. So see, everything is just incredible. It just happened the way it's meant to happen. So my sister was still there. My mom realized that this is the other amazing thing. She worked with children and she was trained CPR.
Wow,
so
that's
for
awesome.
Children. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is just so perfect. My mom got me out of the water. She started to do what she knew. And she said I was like a raggedy doll. She's like, at that moment, I'm completely disconnected. Like we were talking before, from this reality. There was nothing that was connected with the essence of me and what I said, the dress. Because like you mentioned before, with a spirit living a human experience. So at that moment, my human experience was not part of my essence. So I didn't feel absolutely anything she was doing. And then again, like in this experience repeatedly, it happened like in just a second. I felt that I had jumped from the tallest building in the world. And it was that sense of vacuum, like, and I could not stop this from happening. It was like, no, and there was nothing I could do. And I was being pulled back, like if I was being sucked, vacuum back. And there was nothing I could do. And then, I realized I'm back in this body when all the feelings of, or in this experience, when all the feelings of pain, discomfort, lack of freedom, all that was back. And I was not happy. And I was just not happy. And from that moment here, my journey just became really difficult in my those days in my life because I didn't want to be here. And the things that happened is that, guys, I had an awareness I did not have before. And it's hard because you say, yeah, before is 2-3 years of your life, but I had this awareness. Now I see my parents and I'm like, wow, they're not just my parents, they are my equal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had experienced oneness. And I look at my body, imagine what I felt. I'm looking at my body and I'm like, I'm not this baby. I'm not this, because now I have the knowing, the awareness that I was more than this.
Yes, that you're something else. Yeah.
That exactly, I had that clarity. And then I would just go look at myself in the mirror and I will cry, guys. And I would say that this is not me. This is not my name and I should not be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't relate with other children because I would look at them and I just think, what is going on with these people? They don't know anything. Yeah. It was such a hard thing. And then the other thing is I came with the possibility, or people, we call it abilities, but I had the possibility right after to read and write.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. Many NDEers come back with remarkable gifts. And some are temporary and some last the rest of their lives. I mean, with your gifts, I mean, and I know you're getting there, were there some that were temporary and some that were lifelong?
Yeah, this was lifelong. After that, I had incredible, because people say that children don't have that possibility to do abstract things until they reach certain age because of the brain connections with the neurons. I could put together complex puzzles. I could resolve mathematical problems because I just had this clarity, and I would just say, I don't need to learn. I'm just remembering. Wow. So for me, school was really easy. I would just look at things and I understood. I could just see puzzles. I could see, and I could see the abstractions as I could model things in my head. It was incredible. And then imagine how difficult it was, because although I have all these abilities, I didn't have the language. Imagine 3 years old to express what I was experiencing. Not just I did not have the language, but people around me did not have the capacity to understand. So at the time, nothing, imagine if this was early 70s, nobody knew about near death experiences. Right. Nobody heard about these. None of this was known. I was raised as Catholic. On top of that, I mean, none of this, there was not an open mind about any of this.
Right, that would not have been a subject they would want to hear about.
No, so this was extremely hard, and just feeling and knowing that I could not express what I was feeling, sensing, experiencing, I just became really angry. And I refused to eat. I got sicker than before. I just isolated myself. I didn't even want to be touched. So this turned really, really hard. My parents did not know what to do. They were very young. They were forced to marry when they were 17. So by the time I was born, they were around 20. At the time, it was not like today, that internet and everything bring people up to speed pretty fast. No, they were very naive, very young. Oh my God, this was hard. Yeah. So Colombia was also a country at war. So they were doing what they could do to deal with this situation. So imagine all this is just chaos. Wow. And then they, of course, fired this lady, this maid, and that they had to find another one because both of them were busy with, they were finishing school, imagine, and just starting with their own careers and things. So they left us with this other maid. And at that moment, it's incredible because when I was going through the hardest of the time where it was so critical at that moment, is when the help that I needed came in the most remarkable, amazing, beautiful way. And it's not too long after my near-death experience, I started to have what is known today as out-of-body experiences. So I would just experience a realm that was similar to the one I experienced there, the realm of the light. And But to go there, I will go to a series of the stages of feeling like difference in frequencies, movements, colors, sounds, things that I have never experienced in this physical realm. And it was pretty disturbing. And the thing, I will go to that realm of peace, of, well-being, and I wanted to be there. So I started to sleep more than usual. I just wanted to be in this place. So I would just go to sleep, but we were left with this maid, and for her it was good if we were sleeping, because she didn't have to do anything.
So I'm trying to put this in perspective, and from the way you're making it sound to me is your sleep was your reality, and your awake was, you don't want any part of it. That was the dream or the nightmare.
You are very correct.
Okay.
Because there was a moment in my life when I would just look at this and I would say, how I know what is the real thing?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that, like you're saying, that
Right.
this physical reality was a dream.
Do you feel like people today, or people that have not experienced what you've experienced, who go through bouts of depression where they just want to sleep all the time, are opposite? They're because they haven't experienced what you have experienced, that maybe when they go into these depressed states and they sleep, that it's almost like they need to find that, but it's just not there. They weren't lucky enough to experience what you did. Am I off base?
No, because what happened is that when you fall into depression, is like, because I experienced it myself later on in my life, you're in this place where you have lost this connection with your inner self.
Mm-hmm.
You feel you're lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the use of drugs or alcohol or sleep too much is an attempt to go back to this place where you feel that you're feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is that well-being, that state of greatness is the presence, is the self, is, it feels good.
That's
how
why
I go back to that.
drinking or doing drugs.
Yeah.
Or sleeping or whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, so this is when you fall below thought or you go above thought. So what that happened with drugs and alcohol and everything is that sadly you're going below. So this is not really getting to the right place.
Mm-hmm.
You might experience it when you're in that state of I feel well, but oh God, after that is terrible, because you realize, no, I'm not there, and I never. So you're falling below thought. So you're just at the state and you're more really like dormant than truly awake.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when I was sleeping, I was having the clarity that I was in the realm, because I was usually when we sleep, we are unaware of what we are experiencing. But I was having what we call here lucid dreaming. I was aware.
Right.
So I was experiencing these other states of being with complete awareness. So I would go to this realm of the light and I would have awareness of where I was. And in one of these journeys, one day I was surrounded by starlight figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, wow, this is now amazing. Now guess what? All I wanted to do was to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just having fun. I'm now surrounded by stars. This is incredible. And in another one of these journeys later on, one of these starlight figures it was shining in pure gold.
Mm-hmm.
And it shaped itself into a human form. And it approached me and it touched me. And it's when I have the deeper awareness, wow! And it's when I call them beings of light. I say, you are a being of light.
Mm-hmm.
So this being was showing me, I am like you. That's why it shaped itself like human form. So I'm like, oh, you are a being of light. And I had the knowing, the realization, I am a being of light, because that's how I saw myself.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly later in life, I saw a movie. You guys remember a movie called Cocoon?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And when I saw those aliens taking their skin off and showing themselves as light, I was like, oh my God, that's what we are.
Wow.
That's what we are, pure light. Yeah.
That was a great movie.
That was amazing. Of course, later the aliens look also like with form, but no,
Right.
it was the moment where it was just light, and I'm like, that's what we are.
I could
Under
really,
this
on that movie, I could really use a dip in that pool right about now. But, you know, when you describe those beings of light, were in the place where you were they floating? Were they, I know they were in human form, but did they have eyes, mouths? I guess, what was the description to you that you can give to us about them?
Yeah, no, they didn't have any physical
attributes
yeah, exactly. No, they were just light. It's like if you see, they were mostly shapeless light, but I knew they were beings. This is incredible. And when I kept going and visiting this realm, and then others will shape as humans, like they were golden, they were silver, they were blue, there was some that would never shape. And it was mainly the blue, the golden, and the silver. The rest wouldn't. And I don't know how to even describe to you these guys, but there's even colors, movement, sounds that don't exist in this physical realm. So it's really hard to try to
somewhat
describe
like a
things that are
kind of like a silhouette. It was a silhouette that was almost the form of a human, and that's how you could relate to it.
It's just, I wouldn't say silhouette, because the idea of a silhouette is like more like probably black, or a silhouette is more like this is light. Like if you have a figure made of light, but you can kind of see the shape of a body.
Yeah. And there were colors that...
radiating.
Yeah, and you were saying, because I've read that so often, that there are colors that just don't exist in our color spectrum in the physical world. That's impossible to describe to anyone.
Yeah, because
right.
how you describe red to a person that is blind,
or
I've never seen the color red. It's just not possible.
Right.
So it's the same thing. And there was movements. That was one of the things that it always kind of like, wow, these movements that are not here. And the changes in a speed are really strange. Can go really fast, really slow. It's amazing. Very different. And then these beings didn't say or do anything at the beginning, but just being in their presence was absolutely amazing. It was so much peace and the sense of so much love. But again, look how it is very necessary that we are in balance. So what was happening is that now all I wanted to do was to sleep. So I could not be the child that has slept forever. So now I needed balance. So what happened is that one day I was taking a shower and I was just relaxing just there in the shower, because at those moments when you're more relaxed as well, you're connected to this place of presence, of calmness, and when you're in this connection, it's what we call your vibrational frequencies high. You're at an open channel, and at that moment, I'm just in this state of peace. When a being of light appeared in the bathroom. So it was the first time I saw them here, and it was a blue, intense, shiny blue light, and it's just like wow! Now the beings of light are here. And I
would have been running for my towel. Like, no, not now.
This is beautiful, because in being so young, then you don't have yet in your mind any of these thoughts. You know, you're so pure, and it's just like I'm just in the presence of love. I'm just in the presence of the divine, and I'm just in such a state of joy and incredibly, again, like although they didn't do or say anything, I started to heal, and I started to eat. and my health started to get better, and I started to communicate with my parents and my sisters. It was just such an amazing state of well-being. But now not just in my inner self, but now reflected in my physical self.
Mm-hmm.
And then, although I was feeling better and I was doing great, I was still having the sense of disconnection, or I just didn't feel that I just really belong, and I didn't feel that I was connected with my persona. So I was still throwing these big tantrums. And then one night they were calling me to eat dinner and I wouldn't come. Like, Ingrid. And I'm like, oh. So they came and I'm like, we're calling you. And I said, don't call me like that. That is not my name. And they said to me, so how we should call you? What is your name? And I said, I do not need one. And then that was the time when the beings of light started to talk to me. And that night they had enough with me because I was a difficult child, imagine. Then I was sent to bed and I'm just there and I'm crying when I heard this voice. Now imagine, I was just not seeing, I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. And it's just this very beautiful, delicate, amazing voice. And he said to me, he's going to take time, with the most compassionate way, like it's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the realm of the light, as you already know.
Wow.
So if you guys remember, I experienced the state of non-self. So it just became clear to me at that moment. I'm like, wow, I get it. Now it's good. And I felt good because I understood what I did not need a name, that I wasn't crazy.
Let me ask you something at this point. It could be a difficult question, but being raised Catholic, how were you processing this? Were you expecting to see Jesus, Mother Mary, God? How did you wrap your head around all of this at this time?
No, incredibly, because I did not have, maybe because I was so young, I wasn't expecting anything. Yeah, so maybe if I would have been older, I already conditioned to that. Mm-hmm. But I was too young. Incredibly later in my life, when I asked the purpose, why my NDE happened when I was so young, this will answer your question, that it was beautiful what I learned. I asked the beings of light, and they said this is the perfect answer, because they said your NDE happened when you were so young because at that age you were old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet.
Makes sense.
That was beautiful. And it's later on when people ask me that question, and they say, what about God? What about Jesus? And I said, I was so young to have that fixed in my head. So that was even more, it was perfect, because nothing was controlled. It was just a perfect clear canvas, just pure clean. And another thing is that my parents, they were raised as Catholic too, but like I said to you, that time the country was at war, and, and they were pretty busy. We were left with the maid. So we were not like with the Catholic teaching just right there on top of us all the time.
Right, okay.
I was so young, I was not in a school yet. So see, it's all these things that I was very free from that conditioning.
There was no distraction at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is what you're asking me is beautiful, because later in my life,
and it's time for break once again. Stay with us, folks, on the Paranormal Road. When we return, we will hear the conclusion of Ingrid's near-death experience.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Ohio Grassman. It is said he lurks deep in the forests of the American heartland. Hundreds have encountered him. Join us at Buckeye Bigfoot, where we tell the stories of those true encounters. I'm Nance Warren, your host and narrator at Buckeye Bigfoot. Look us up on YouTube. Just search for Buckeye Bigfoot. Then come sit with us for a while we tell you stories of the undisputed king of the forest.
Young, I was not in school yet, so it's all these things that I was very free from that conditioning.
There was no distraction at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is what you're asking me is beautiful, because later in my life, when I was 6 years old, I started to see what we call spirits. Mm-hmm. But I will go back to that in a minute, because the first person that actually realized that I was truly seeing something was my mom. Mm-hmm. Because since that very night when the beings of light started to talk to me, they also said to me that it was best if I didn't mention them or this conversation to anybody, because they were not going to understand. Mm-hmm. And I just, of course, at that time, I was like, but what is not to understand? What? I thought everybody saw what I saw. What is not to understand? Is this crazy? But pretty soon I realized that, people didn't understand. And I wouldn't mention anything, and they would just say, you're just dreaming, or you're just making things up. And so no, really people were, and I was a child, you know how we are with children. Right. Yeah, you're just dreaming that. So because I was asked not to talk about these, my way to express it was by drawing. Mm-hmm. So by now I'm like 5 years old now, and I just started I went to kindergarten, and I was drawing starlight figures everywhere. I'm painting these things everywhere. So, and I'm painting auras. So all my drawings had auras around. Wow. Because that was the way I saw the world. Mm-hmm. And then it was the teacher, just really, it called her attention, and she will come to me and say, are these the stars and the sun? Because I was painting these everywhere. And I said, it just came out of me naturally. Just imagine just a child, innocent. And I said, no, these are my friends, the beings of light. Mm-hmm. And she's like, we better call your parents. Uh-oh. Yeah. So, of course, at that moment I realized, oh, no, I should not talk. And then my mom came, and my mom being a teacher and knowing how I was now in a Catholic school, and she looked at they were seeing at the drawings, and there was a moment I turned to my mom and I said, I wanted her to believe me. And I said, Mom, these are the colors that we wear, and these are my friends, the beings of light. And my mom looked at me with these mom-killing eyes, like, don't talk anymore. And I just felt so sad. And then she said to the teacher, oh, this is just a stage, we will work on this, nothing is happening, blah. We left, and I was so sad. And it's when my mom when we were on the way home, she said, I believe you, because I also see things that others can't see. And I'm like, oh my God, this was amazing. And I said, what is it that you see? And this is when she confessed to me that she could see spirits. I didn't know what a spirit was. Mm-hmm. And she's playing and everything, but okay, I didn't really know what she was talking about. Again, like, if you don't know something, you just make whatever in your mind. And when I was 6 years old is when I saw the first spirit, and it was a very, very, very scary experience. Mm. So when this happened, it was a night, and we were all sleeping in the same room because the whole house had been painted. And back then the paint was not like now. The smell of the paint was unbearable. Mm-hmm. So the whole house, they left the doors open in the whole house to ventilate, and we all slept in the same room. And that night, this spirit entered the room, and it just closed the door and opened the other door and turned off the light. My mom always left the light in the walk-in closet on, so it was very disruptive thing what this spirit was doing, and I felt petrified in fear. So my mom, after the whole thing, she got up and I followed her and I said, Mom, the beings of light and the spirits are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when my mom started to realize, oh, so what is that you're seeing then? So I explained to her, and she started to cry, and she said, again, like now you mentioned before, because all we knew was the Catholic teachings. So my mom said, I think for what you're describing that you're seeing angels.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, but they don't have wings like in the pictures. So my mom was like, no, it has to be your guardian angels. And then now she was like, oh, wow. She said, you're here for something special. And so now she was really, really open to try to understand what I was going through and to help me. And that very night is when I asked the beings of light. By then I've been communicating with them for like 2 years. And it was a very clear, very open communication. And I just asked them, because I was so afraid of the spirits, I called them the dark spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and I asked them, what is with these spirits? And I was waiting to hear something like, yeah, we're different and blah. And the answer was beautiful, because they said to me, you, us, and these that you call spirits, we are all the same. They said the only difference is the awareness everyone has about who they truly are. So depending on that awareness is where you just come and live all these experiences, and you are where you are, and you are at that level of clarity or at that level of being dormant or being awake. So it says we're all the same. We have all the same essence. We just don't know who we are. And the more awakened you are, the more you touch your true nature, your awareness. So, and I said, I also said, my mom said that you are angels. Is that what you are? And guys, the answer was beautiful, beautiful, because it's when they said to me, we are what you want us to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that was absolutely beautiful, because it's when you know how compassionate and how loving and how giving is the universe, and it will present to you in the way that you can understand it, that you're ready for it. So this, for me, from there just opened the doors to more, and they said to me, you don't have to worry and you don't have to be sad, because we will always be here. We will always be here. We'll be here for you. But again, like you guys mentioned before, when it says the question of why me, yes, it started to come in my path, and it's when I started to feel that I was very different, that nobody ever mentioned the beings of light, that nobody was like me, how I could see things. I started to have visions also since I was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know at the beginning I was having visions, but later in my life, when things that I was seeing started to happen, I'm like, wow. Then I realized no one has this clarity, but they said people was going to be put in my path to guide me and to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the case. Like I mentioned, the first person was my mom. Then it was my grandmother. My grandmother was raised Catholic, but she was a very, very rebellious woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also like my parents. She was forced into a marriage, an arranged marriage. But when she had the clarity and she was older and she decided she didn't want to be married to this person, she was among the few first people in Colombia attempting divorce. And oh Lord, that was crazy. She broke up with my grandfather, and she decided to break from the Catholic teachings, and she joined an order called the Rosicrucian Order, because they were teaching things that were beyond the form.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to know more. She said, we cannot just be this. And she started to learn from Buddhism, Hinduism, and all the other teachings, and realized we're more than what we have been taught. And then she came into my life, and she started to guide me to when she made me, my grandmother at the time was living in Venezuela. So when she came to visit one time and brought a picture of a Hindu guru meditating in a lotus position, and I just look at this and say, Grandma, these are the light that I see. And we started to talk, and then my grandmother became a very important person in my life. She taught me how to meditate when I was 8. And by the age of 12, she brought me to the first Buddhist temple, which was a Zen Buddhist temple in Colombia, which was unheard at the time, but she was always looking for these places. And I went to this temple and I learned a breathing technique, and I said to the monk, hey, I don't think we can come too often because my grandma, she lives in Venezuela. And he says, to do this practice meditation, you never have to come back to the temple. And I said, why? And he said, because you already have a temple. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, you are the temple. So wherever you are, you can practice this breathing meditation. Pretty much he was teaching me by then what presence means. And it was amazing. So from there, I started to get deep into spirituality. And for my age, I was always the youngest looking for these things. So of course, I always felt different from everybody else.
Right. You know, I think a lot of people who are, you know, that didn't even have NDEs necessarily, you know, and unfortunately kids can be cruel, but you know, in school, they say, oh, there's, you know, little Jimmy, stay away from him. He's a weirdo. There are people at a very young age that are just different. And I think they're different because they do carry the light of the source or God or whatever you want to call from our creation. And I think that their soul is either, you know, I don't know if there is such a thing as an old soul. You know, we hear that often, but there is something different about that soul, a more consciousness, if that makes sense, at a very young age. And that does make us different. It does make us explore things in a different way and look at things in a different way.
Yeah, you know, the beautiful thing, one of the questions I asked the beings of light, I was about 5 years old when I said, why me? Why this is happening to me? And the answer was really, really beautiful. The whole thing, they answered to me, because you are special. And I said to them, what do you mean when you said that I am special? And this was absolutely beautiful. They said, everybody is special, but not everybody knows it yet. And you are beginning to know it. Exactly. So that's what you say. The children that are already beginning to know at very young age their connection with the true nature, then they cannot be seen like every other children because you are different.
Right. Yeah, they're different.
We do lectures from time to time. We do lectures at libraries and things where we talk about what we do with our, you know, spirit activity and how we go to people's homes. And I talk to people about their children. And I mention that if there are children in the home that are talking to something that's not there, or they say they have a friend but no one sees it, to not jump to the conclusion that there's something wrong or that you have a child with a disorder. That children are so innocent and so vulnerable that why would a spirit not want to connect or be seen by a child?
Yes, exactly.
And interact. So we tell people, don't jump to conclusions. Don't immediately take your child to a psychologist and think there's something wrong and then start them on a drug regimen early on. Listen to them and talk to them and ask them about the spirits and ask them what they're talking about and who they're talking to. because it very well could be a spirit that they're communicating with.
Yes. And a child that is more awakened and is more connected and is vibrating at a higher frequency is like an open radio. I say we're like a radio, and we just, wherever we put our dial is what we're connecting with.
Exactly. And that's what we say too.
Yeah, and it's beautiful you tell me this, because I have my own example here with my own son. He's a very, very awakened being. And it was hard for him to be in the school, and thanks God, I pray so hard, and I found an amazing place. He's in like a family school system. It's a lady that she just teaches a small group. It's 3 teachers with 12 students.
Wow.
And this is perfect. It was the perfect gift for him and for me, because she teaches meditation, and they just help the elder people. It's incredible the work they do. And this was the perfect space for him, because he was already starting to suffer in the regular school system, because he's very awakened, very connected. And so he couldn't fit.
And the masses don't really connect to that. They don't understand it. And what people don't understand goes unnoticed. And, for someone like your son, it is difficult. It is complicated. And so you are lucky that you found someone that understands and is able to work with children like him.
Yeah. And this is and I love what you guys mentioned you're doing, because it's bringing to the parents the awareness that, hey, more children are coming to this world with this clarity, with this awareness that they know that we are more than these guys. Just right after my near death experience, I would just say how I could have seen my body lifeless if I was still alive.
Right.
More alive than ever. And I was just questioning all of it. And later in my life, I would say to people, even when they had already their careers, their names, their positions, their titles, I said, what happened if today you will have an accident? And unfortunately, you have this accident and you lose the memory completely of who you are, including your name, your title, your family, your doings, your non-doings, and you don't remember anything, but you still are. You didn't die. So what is all that?
Right.
That's not who you are.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, I'm further convinced that, again, we're spiritual beings who are at the moment having a physical experience. And again, talking about the children, unfortunately in the physical world, and I think, it's all by design, but in the physical world, we need food for substance. So therefore, caveman hunted. We had to form tribes to protect ourselves. So there's this animalistic or primitive behavior in our physical world of these needs, these wants, these, and desires, but mainly it's driven by the need to survive. Yeah. So when a child comes into, the world today too, that's so different. Our primitive side wants to say there's something wrong with this child. It's hard for us, again, to connect that we are so much more than what's in this body, because we're having that physical experience, and there's a reason for it.
And incredibly, everything, even in nature, you just mentioned hunting, we just mentioned all these things, and everything in nature is guiding us back to gather and work together as a group, as a team. Even in those, when we are talking about, when we're using just the instinct of getting together and hunting, this is all a pointer to go back and reconnect. This is like one of the main purposes. You're going to love this. When I asked the beings, so like once I had the clarity to ask questions that were more profound and simple. This is a very simple question, but it just didn't come before. I said to them even something so simple: what was the purpose of my near-death experience? And they said to me, for you to bring the message of the power of connection. And I said, how? What do you mean? And they said, look, when you drown, what was the first reaction when you saw your body that you were not going to come back?
Mm-hmm.
But that was your mental position still. That was still your ego mind. You're back because there was a bigger plan. Reason why you went to look for the maid and you went to look for your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You had to come back. You were looking for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So this is amazing. So I said to them, okay, so if I was looking for help, why didn't I go directly to my mom, instead of wasting my time and stopping at the maid's room? And this is where the whole teaching is. They said, because this is where we show you contrast.
Mm.
What happened when you went to the maid? Although she was closer to you, only few feet away from where you were drowning, she could not hear you because she did not have any connection with you.
But your mom did.
There was no connection. This person even mistreated you, so there was no love.
And not
with
even
your mom,
she didn't even have the desire to connect with you.
That's exactly the intention. So with the mom of complete connection, unconditional love, then she was farther away. So look at how beautiful the symbology of this. So there's not distance, there's no time, there's not a space. True love and connection doesn't have any boundaries.
Right.
So she was the one that saved me. And look, they said, when there's not connection, they will let you drown.
Yeah.
When there's not connection, there's war. When there's not connection. So in our even very beginning in humanity, you just mentioned it, even in our most primary state of beings, when we were these cavemen, we decided, let's gather together to hunt together.
Mm-hmm. We work
and what
together.
we're doing nowadays, competing and hurting each other.
Yeah. Chaos,
separation. And the more we do that, guess what? The more we're walking away from the true purpose of who we are, going back together, reunited as a whole.
There is one thing I want to bring up, and I know it may sound far-fetched, but we wouldn't be the Paranormal Road if I don't bring this up. Your experience and many NDE experiences can also be very similar to what we call alien abductees. You know, that they are taken in the night. Many alien abductees are people that claim that it's aliens. They're seeing beings of light. And there are some similarities. Did that at any point in your life cross your mind?
I just, that was amazing because, like I said, when I asked the beings of light later in my life, I like that because later in my life when I learned just to say about ascended masters and I learned about other guides and about other beings, I went and asked again, are you what is called ascended masters? And they said again, we are what you want us to be. So that's the power of consciousness. There's only one true substance. There's only one true source, consciousness. Then not long ago, the beings of light said to me, there is only one true frequency, God's frequency or source frequency, because sometimes God is understood as not clearly, but source frequency, consciousness. So sometimes the fact that we see a being like looking as an alien or looking as an ascended master, looking as a Christ or looking is precisely what at that moment present to us for our own experience, for our own understanding, for our own process of evolution.
Yeah, the growth, the soul's growth, the journey.
Yeah, at the end, you and I and the beings of light and what we call aliens or angels, we're just one. We're just one. But things present to us in different shapes and forms because that's the way in which we are experiencing consciousness and evolving. And everything at the end is a pointer to go within. We cannot lose ourselves in the experience because the experience is not it. It's the purpose behind the experience. And at the end, everything is a pointer. When I ask the beings of light, what is the purpose of time and experience. They said the purpose of time and experience, the only purpose, is to help you remember who you truly are. To go back to the nature of who you are. So if we get lost in the experience, if I get lost in my NDE, if I get lost in the being, so if I get lost in just that, then I am missing the point. Yeah. I'm missing that the truth behind all this is go back to the core of who I am. Go back to presence. Go find for the true home, which is what we call again the kingdom of heaven, the space of presence. Go back to the source. Go back to who you truly are. Not long ago, they showed me this beautiful analogy when they said there's only one source, and they showed me it's called kaleidoscope, and it was so beautiful because there's only one, but it produces, it manifests or it expresses itself in this majestic, incredibly variety of images. So, but sometimes we get trapped and confused thinking that is the reality. And that's just the experience. But the experience is guiding us through all these to go back to the source, to go back to the root, the core, the point.
Beautiful.
Yes. Even the beings of light, the guys explained to me something beautiful. And it was like, even when we gather to eat, and look at how we have created separation even at that point, the fact that we eat, the fact that we sit together as a family, eat the meals together, the purpose of that is, again, go back to gather, go back to be together, go back to reunite, to connect. But what we do, just sit in the couch and eat our meal alone in front of the TV.
Or stare at our cell phone and Facebook.
Exactly. So we are not understanding the nature of the teachings. Right. Life itself is guiding us to go back to connection. Everything is guiding us. Even the fact that we have children is not just to multiply as a species. No. The true purpose of that is showing us unconditional love.
Yes. Yes, I firmly
and many
believe that.
parents miss the point. Yeah, and I was like, oh, they don't even pay attention to the child. So we're missing the point.
Yeah, they're losing the experience and what it means.
Exactly.
Oh, I can't believe we are really, running into time here, and
I know
it's been wonderful. But before,
we could talk forever.
Yeah, we could.
Yes,
you're just such a joy to talk to. I would love to have you back on the show, maybe in season 3, because I love talking to you. But for our listeners, what can you say for the two group of listeners that may be listening? Listeners who are suffering from the loss of a loved one, or listeners who are fighting depression or an addiction, from your divine knowledge and from what you've learned and from what you've been through, I know there's listeners out there who are suffering from multitudes of things, but the 3 things that I'd like you to touch upon are the loss of somebody dear to them, people who are fighting depression, or maybe are addicted to substance abuse. What can you say to them for hope and for them to help themselves?
Yeah, and I this is always hard, because when we are in a situation like that, it's like when we have the head under the water, and it's so difficult. I have been there. I was in a time where I suffered deep depression, and I thought about committing suicide, and I went really, really to a very dark place. But at that moment is when I went back to try to see things with a different eyes, change the way I perceive things. And my prayer is when I went back to even pray, because it was a time where I just wasn't even doing any of that. And it was the moment where I said, okay, God, don't change. I wasn't looking for my reality to be changed. I was looking for the possibility of seeing things with clarity. I asked, I said, God, help me see because I cannot see. Help me understand because I cannot understand. And that at that point in my life, it's when the clarity opened to me, and it was pretty much, it was first look for help, but it was receiving the guidance of looking for the help of somebody that was actually open to listen. A space where I could feel safe and I could feel that somebody was actually listening to me, and that was just very, very important for me. And it was that place where I could finally start opening. And through times, I have realized that we always running away from our emotions.
Through drugs, through alcohol.
And through everything,
Yeah.
even denying that I should not be feeling this way. So we replace that by anger. We replace that by frustration, by guilt, by everything else. And nowadays I act completely different. This has opened another door for me because I give permission to myself to feel. If I'm feeling angry, of course, at the moment that something is happening, I am in a disco, okay, whatever this happens. But once I am in a space where I am by myself, I don't call it good and say, okay, this already passed. I invite that feeling into my life. I invite this anger. Okay, anger. Now that I have a mind and a place where I am clear, why are you here? What are you trying to teach me? Why you're here? So I call this feeling into my life, this emotion, and I turn this as an opportunity to see what I am not seeing within myself. This is a whole topic. We could talk about this for like an hour. Because this is very important, and it's that place where we start discovering, and that was one of my big awakenings. After I've been talking to these psychologists for 1 year, and I said again, after he asked me to do a list of sufferings, guys, and I said the list was so long that he said, in my 37 years of practice, I've never seen someone that has suffered this much and is mentally stable. And I said again, why me? Why this is happening to me? And he said the two words I needed to hear for my awakening, for my experience. It was, why not? And it was the first time I put myself at the level of the cause and not at the effect. It was the first time that everything connected, and he started to say, look, because of this, this happened, because of this happened, because of this, and I'm like, wow. At this moment, I found purpose behind absolutely every one of my experiences. And I realized that, and I put myself at the state of gratitude, because at that moment I say, thanks to all of these, I am where I am today.
See, it's so interesting you're saying that, because I also feel that sometimes our greatest tragedy, our greatest pain will ultimately and can ultimately turn into our greatest enlightenment.
Yes, and our greatest teacher. And it's when I started to realize that nothing has been done
by
to
accident.
Me. It has been done for me.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. Beautiful way to say it.
Yes. So, of course, the person that is having a moment of suffering right now and he has the head under the water cannot hear this with this clarity. But at that person, I would just say, be gentle with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself.
Forgiving.
Be loving forgiving, because there's a moment where you experience, you're being fragile. So give that space to yourself. Go to a place where you can actually, I practice walking meditation. I say, give yourself that space where you can be by yourself. You can sense nature. Something that is, I find incredibly helpful is try to think about who you could help. Once we put ourselves, and once we just separate ourselves from our idea, I am the only one suffering, and this is only happening to me. No, this is happening to so many of us. And we're not here to compare ourselves with others. No, but if I feel at that moment, what if I could help somebody else in need?
Unconditional love.
And exactly. And I didn't, geez, I just helped someone today, even if it's just a little bit. Oh, now you start feeling that this feels good.
Mm-hmm.
This feels good. And then you're alleviating and giving joy to somebody else. So that's something that happened to me too. When I was in this deep depression, I realized, oh my God, yeah, I am trapped. This was beautiful because I said, I realized that I was trapped in the chapter of Ingrid and poor Ingrid.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
oh,
and that
woe is
life
me.
and that life was this gigantic book of 10,000 words, and I was trapped in the little paragraph of me.
Mm-hmm. Wonderfully
What
said.
what if I could read the whole book? What if I could cross the page and see what else is there? Oh my God, there was a whole world out there?
Well, Ingrid, I know that our listeners probably, because we didn't really go into too much in the beginning about who you are, and just maybe to establish a little bit of, I guess you'd say, credibility to your story. You have quite the credentials, aren't you? Have a PhD, and
yes.
I mean, tell our listeners just a little bit about who you are in this realm and what you do.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And this is another beautiful thing, because I became first a marine biologist, which
Wow.
I knew. This is one of the things I knew since I was very little. When I was 5 years old, I told my dad, I'm going to be a marine scientist. And then that's what I did. And people asked me, this is the other beautiful thing. They said, how is it possible that you became a marine scientist if you drowned?
I would have asked the same question.
You should be just so scared. And I said, no, the opposite, because drowning brought me to see the light.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think, as you were saying that, and I was thinking, well, that's where you found the most inner beauty peace.
Yeah.
Was after
So
the terror, you found the beauty.
Yes. So for me, that was after that, becoming a marine scientist and becoming a diver. I am a master diver, and I've been diving all over the place, and I have been in caves, in wrecks, in diving at night. There's the other thing. Dying took away the fear of death. So for me, that's been incredible to live a life where I don't fear death, because I have traveled the world. Being a scientist, I did my PhD in oceanography. I worked for organizations like the Colombian Navy, the U.S. Navy, for NASA. Wow. And that gave me the possibility to travel the world. I've been in 56 countries.
Wow.
And I don't know how many cities. And I have exchanged science and spirituality wherever I go. And losing the fear of death have opened that door for me. I travel by myself so many places, and they're like, but you're a girl, you shouldn't be by yourself. And I said, I'm okay, nothing, because I'm in this connection with the realm of the light. I don't act crazy. I know where to go. I have always that clarity. Wherever I go, I connect with we call it spirit guides, beings of light, and I always go where I'm meant to go, with the clarity, with the knowing. And it's same thing with my career in science. Oh my God, having this connection has been incredible, because guys, I created the most amazing projects.
Wow.
That you cannot imagine. Like I mentioned to you, I came also with the ability of being able to work with mathematics and abstractions. And so I was very good at that. I could see matrices of like thousands of numbers, 20, 30 years of data, and I could see things, and I could put results and create these incredible things. So yeah, I work with
Ingrid, you're making me feel so inferior here.
And we're just a little podcast in a basement, and you've been, 50 something countries.
I can't even think about math. That's just incredible. That's amazing. And
but
beautiful.
I just wanted our listeners to know just a little bit more how amazing you really are and what you've accomplished in your life.
And how can they find out more about you?
Oh, I have a website. It's ingridhonkala.com. I'm all the different media pages, Facebook, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel.
Well, we will definitely too put your channel and your website, and we're going to put the links in our podcast version of the show and on our Facebook page for Paranormal Road.
Thank you. And there's this beautiful video. Maybe I don't know the one that you guys watch with the French filmmaker Anthony Chini.
Yes, that's the one I watched. It was very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. He's doing an amazing job too. So yeah, thank you. This has been, such an honor and an incredible pleasure to talk to you guys.
It's been wonderful.
And we thank you so much.
I know you're going to touch the lives of many, many of our listeners who are listening to this tonight. And again, I think all things happen for a reason. Somebody out there is meant to hear your story, and it'll probably make an impact on them, your story that you may never know. Hopefully they will share or reach out to you, but I think you're going to make an impact on quite a few people.
And
I know you have on me.
And we're very, very proud to have you on our show.
Thank you very much. And before we go, I want to mention something quick. Like people usually ask me, like when I mentioned the being so light, the guides, sometimes people want to ask me, can you see the future? Can you tell us this? Can you predict things? I said, that's not the work that we really meant to do. The work that we meant to do is go back to the core of who we truly are. Don't get trapped in things like that. It's not the outer world. Let's not keep looking outside. I said my true work here with what I'm trying to do is to bring you back to regain your inner power. Each one of us inner power. How I do to learn myself to connect with my own inner guidance.
And the rest will come along. Your path and your journey will be exactly what it should be if you follow that.
Exactly. Don't go out there. Don't disempower yourself looking for answers. All of us are guiding each other, and all of us are helping each other in this path. But the idea is that any work that we're doing is to help. We're not nobody's guru. We're here to help each other to go back to the light, to go back to the root of who we are. To empower each other. So that's what I want to mainly say. This is the work that I am to do here, is to show each other the light. We're here to work together.
Wonderful.
To shine together. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Paranormal Road, Ingrid.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. This was such a joy.
Yes, thanks. It was great. So you have a great evening, and we are so blessed to have met you.
Yes, you guys too. And thank you very much again. This is just amazing.
And as always, we'd like to thank you for joining us on the Paranormal Road. Remember, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, always be conscious of your surroundings. Look up, look down, look left, look right, because you never know when you will end up on the Paranormal Road.